I'll move to the confirmation of order of the meeting. And I don't believe, Kieran, there's been any changes in that. So move in a second, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Owen. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Confirmation of the open minutes from the 8th of December. It starts on page 8. Just go through those. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Thank you, Claire. Do you want to pull your microphone down?
Yeah. I was looking. Why would it be doing that? Yeah, cool. Yeah. So it's on page 10, which is the late Te Kawutu thing. It's just right at the bottom, actually. It says, because Graham, I remember that you asked a question about, or said that you're pretty positive that council should investigate, you know, it's like it was more directive than council would investigate this option. I thought it was a request that council try and get funding from external sources. So if you just read that paragraph, I mean, I just felt it didn't capture that direction.
I think we had a comment from Gary Knighton who said he'd done some exploring in terms of the River Authority being able to fund, and I think he said it was positive. So I took that as being, but you don't think that's strong enough, or do you think, knowing that, you think that's strong enough? Service delivery held 8th of December. Be a true and correct record of that meeting. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Liz. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Transportation report. Brian, good morning. Great to see you here. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll take the report as read, but if we look at the second page where we have the table of current works and the transportation program underway, as an update there, Mangatautari Road at the top of the table is about 75% sealed now, and we're waiting to do the last piece down through the gully once the Transport Agency has finished their works on State Highway 1, for which they need to use Mangatautari Road as a detour, so we've paused our works while they complete theirs. Ryburn Road there, another short rehab jobs due to get underway later this month. The chip seal surfacing, which we've obviously been flat out doing the last few weeks.
Sorry, we're not getting any sound on Zoom.
Yeah, I am. I'm fine.
I think it's your end, Roger.
Yeah, I'm getting sound, thank you.
Okay. Shall I proceed? Yep. Okay, so with resurfacing, we've obviously done a lot of resurfacing, including a lot around Cambridge before the cycle races. So we raced ahead to get as much of the surfacing down and then get it all swept and cleaned up before the cycle races. And I understand that went pretty well. So I saw some footage on TV and it looked pretty impressive, the action there. Construction projects, of course, the Hanlon Road roundabout is complete. There's just some minor maintenance works and a little bit of planting to carry out, which on some of the banks, and we'll do that come autumn when we get a bit more moisture in the ground.
And locally, there's some very, very complimentary comments about that roundabout and how it's not only how it's operating, but the way it's been done and fitted in with the Avani Drome and St. Peter's. Well done, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, it was a challenging project, and especially through COVID, but we got there in the end, and I think we got some, obviously overall a great improvement to the roading network in that location, great for the velodrome and the school and the traffic, but also great for pedestrians and cyclists in terms of the paths that we got linked up. The Tiawa Cycleway, of course, the big news there in January, the 25th of January, the contractor started on the site at the St. Peter's end, and so has started clearing vegetation and doing earthworks and establishing their access roads and the like to get equipment and materials and everything onto the site. So I've been out there a couple of times and tromped up and down through the bush, and it's going to be great. So we're all watching to see that build get underway. So then skipping to page 3, I've talked about the Hanlon Road roundabout already and the road maintenance contracts.
Hi, Brian.
Mowing grass.
Just a question on the CCTV extension. Why were the Tiawa cameras swapped out, and what new cameras are going in Kiki?
Right, so we haven't swapped out any cameras yet, but we've identified some through the user group and police that they would like to see some changes to a couple of the cameras to give them a better field of view or a different field of view. So we intend to swap out some of those cameras, and obviously the ones in Kiki that we've talked about, looking at the main street of Kiki and the Whitmore Street, Lion Street intersection is the next construction sort of rollout.
You okay with that?
Yeah, that's all good, thanks.
Thank you. Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These cameras, are they number plate recognition cameras, the new ones, or?
Well, interestingly, the police are finding that the number plate recognition cameras are much less useful than they had thought they would be. So it was originally the group and the police who wanted number plate recognition cameras, and now we're finding that they're not as useful. So we'd like to have a more general camera that'll give us a better view day and night. For instance, the number plate recognition camera at night, to stop reflection and headlight glare, it switches to black and white, and the only thing that you see in a lit environment is the number plate, meaning the vehicle is completely in darkness. So that's much less useful to police who want to see what type of vehicle it is, can they see how many people were in it, things like that. So they've sort of gone away from the idea of having multiple number plate recognition cameras and going more for the broader view.
Brian, can I just ask, and I was talking to Dawn the other day about this, are you expecting people on the high-level bridge to report the time that a heavy vehicle goes over there, or has it been monitored and picked up on the video?
Yeah, so I guess we get information from a number of ways of getting it. So certainly we still get people who meet a big vehicle coming the other way who ring us and let our customer services team know, I've just seen, or there's just been this kerfuffle on the bridge because of a large vehicle. So we get that, and that's quite a routine occurrence. But we also get alarms from the camera that looks down on the traffic lane from the north side, and it will put a flag on the video tape to say, I spotted something at this time. For us, it's a matter of, we can spend quite a bit of time just looking through those alarms and those flags to identify vehicles, and sometimes we find they're just two vans or a utility that is legal, but because of the way the traffic was bunched, it alarms as a larger vehicle. So a combination of things is the way we're doing it. Right, so page 3 of my reports, the Victoria Street Bridge Engineering Reports. So I've written quite a bit about this, the explanation of the background and where we're at, and I expect that there'll be some questions about this.
Thank you for that. That's a very, very detailed report, Brian, and I think with what has been going on Facebook, it is good to everybody to have that. A lot of them are technical questions, but it outlines what we have done with our inspections and how often we go with them and what our intention is and how much we're going to spend. Has anybody got any questions that I'd like to ask about that?
May I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha, Roger. Yep.
Yeah, lovely. Now I'll speak up a bit because I've gone off headphones, so my microphone may not be as effective. So please tell me if it's not coming through. I just noticed on that last paragraph, Brian, there is a statement there that while the 1905 bridge does not meet modern standards for factors of safety, and yet I can't see anywhere where those standards are identified, and in what way are we not meeting those standards? And if we're not meeting standards of safety, my interpretation of that is the bridge is unsafe. So I think we need more identification of what those standards are. My concern is, of course, that when we look at the bridge paint, which is when those areas are going to be addressed, that's 2 years' time. And a question that obviously comes up is, in those 2 years, is the condition of the bridge compared to those standards of safety likely to either get better, stay the same, or get worse? The logical response to that is that it will get worse because it's gradually deteriorating. Can we get some definition of those standards that the bridge is not meeting? Because, I mean, that's quite a statement there, that the bridge is not meeting standards.
Can we just stop you there and ask Brian to come in on that, Roger?
Right.
Sorry?
So, Roger, in answer to your question then, it was a geotechnical report that said the foundation design or construction would not meet modern standards for factors of safety. And I guess the geotechnical realm is one of assessing the strength of soils underneath the bridge on the riverbank and making a judgment around how big the foundation should be, whether it should be on piles, how deep those piles would be in the ground, the effects of erosion over time on the riverbank, the river sort of slowly undermining the riverbank. So all of those factors would be taken into account if we were building the bridge today. And in all likelihood, if that bridge was built today using modern standards, at the foot of the bridge where the arch meets the riverbank, it would probably be sitting on a very large raft foundation with piles extending some distance into the ground. So that would be the sort of technique that would be used today. Back in 1905 or earlier when the design was done, the engineers of the day would have excavated the soils on the riverbank, came to what they believed to be a good, firm, hard substrate, and then they built a large concrete foundation on top of that with the big feet that the arch then sits into. So back in their day, they believed that to be a perfectly safe and suitable foundation. And over the last 115 years, of course, that has proved to be exactly the case, that it has been safe and adequate. But as I say, if we were building the bridge today, we would drive some big piles into the ground, and sit that whole foundation on top, just so that we had more reassurance that over time, if the riverbank does erode back, there would be less risk of anything happening to that foundation. So it's not to say that the bridge is unsafe in any way, it's just a different design approach from over 100 years ago to what we would do today. And we make sure that that bridge remains safe by doing regular inspections and seeing that there is no erosion or potential movement of those soils under the feet of the bridge. So that's that one aspect. That's around the factors of safety. And then you asked the question about the condition of the bridge now and what it will be like in 2 years' time. So I guess we have had, myself personally, over 30 years of experience of maintaining this bridge, and obviously engineers before me are much more experienced than that. And we know from the detailed inspection that we've done that there is superficial rust in places on the bridge. Around those central pins, there is a bit more rust, which was addressed in 1998 when the last maintenance contract was done, and there was a lot of extra steelwork bolted in there. So nothing that the engineers and inspectors have seen gives them alarm or cause to think that there will be any rapid deterioration of any member on that bridge that would cause us to need to intervene urgently. So at this stage, we're quite confident that in 2 years' time, when we fully scaffold the bridge, clean it, do repairs and repaint it, that we will preserve that bridge and its safety. But this work is ongoing, obviously. Becca have still got more work to do. They're doing those design calculations. We're going to make some small holes in the deck. And if we get more information that tells us anything different, then of course we'll take action. But at this stage, there is no need for any urgent action.
Can I respond to that a little bit through you, Mr. Chairman? I'm concerned that you've just given a host of areas where the bridge may not meet modern standards. I think the fact that you've actually made a statement in your report that the bridge does not meet modern standards of factors of safety, that now puts a responsibility on us as council that you've told us now that that bridge in a report doesn't meet modern standards of safety.
No, Roger, let me just stop you there. I disagree with that. If you looked at just about every single bridge on our network that hasn't been built recently, it does not meet modern standards. That's not a reason to have to try and bring them up to modern standards. Standards change all the time, whether it's a bridge or a building or an aeroplane or a motor car, they change all the time, but we do not bring all of our old stock up to a modern standard. It's just not required nor viable.
I mean, the same could have been said, I suppose, of earthquake risk of buildings. You know, the same council inspectors may have said, well, that building was okay when we last discussed it. I mean, you've brought it to our attention now. I think that that's of public concern.
Yes, as I say, Roger, I think it's not the right judgment to make. The professional advice that we have is that we do not have any significant concerns with that bridge, and I think that is the message that we have, and is the message we should be sticking to.
I've registered my concern. I'd be interested to know if other councillors have a similar concern.
Philip, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two quick questions. It was described as fair to good. What's your description on fair to good? And secondly, if there was scaffolding involved to maintain the building and do maintenance work or not, would the bridge need to be closed, or one lane need to be closed, or anything like that?
Right, those descriptions fair to good, I guess, come from sort of normal bridge inspection practice. And so if you said it's fair, then it's in a condition you would expect for its age and since it was last maintained. So, if you look at the photographs in the report, there are pictures of some steelwork which gets washed by the rain, which is still in very good condition. Other areas where it doesn't get washed, where, there's little spots of rust on it, but that's very superficial. So those are the sort of descriptions you would have fair to good. The other question, scaffolding. So last time when we repainted the bridge, we fully scaffolded it and we were able to keep it open to the public at the whole time, both lanes, yes.
Kelly, did you type a question about a bridge closure during the maintenance?
I did, and I've just had that answered. Thank you for the query.
Thank you. Jim.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I suppose, and to answer some of Roger's comments or comment on them, I'm certainly no structural engineer. We employ qualified engineers to check the bridge, and there's been no indication from them that there is concern that we should be doing urgent work or stopping using that bridge. So from a council perspective, we need to rely on that technical expertise. I think we've asked the right questions. Are there risks? And there's risks with living, and Roger made comparisons to earthquake-prone buildings, and it does come down to some judgment calls. But at the moment, the technical advice is that the bridge is, as was been said, fair to good, and they haven't raised any concerns. If there was concerns from those experts, then we should obviously react appropriately, whether that means closing it or rebuilding or whatever. But at the moment, the advice is that with the maintenance work that we're talking about, then we've got some further life in that bridge. And if there's an earthquake or a major storm event and there's erosion that happens, that situation could change. But at the moment, that bridge is secure. Yeah, and I'd say I agree with Jim's comments as well. I mean, I've got faith in our staff and the reports and everything, and I don't have problems driving over it.
Thanks, Marcus. Philip, did you have another question?
Just a clarification. It's been mentioned in the past, if by chance the bridge did close, it was an emergency and something happened because of the bridge, stand of the bridge, we would public transport would be used. So the current public transport is the Cambridge to Hamilton bus. Is there an emergency bus service that we would introduce if the bridge had to be closed for some reason?
Well, I think that question has probably got a multitude of different answers. If there was a significant emergency and the bridge closed, we would have to determine at the time what is the best approach to dealing with that, whether it was to put on additional public transport or reroute traffic to other bridges in the network. Yeah, I couldn't. It's not something that we have developed a detailed plan for.
Clear.
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Jim said too, that I think there's nothing, I think it's the right thing to do to rely on the expert advice that we get, that it's good to have updated reports, and I can see that staff are, taking it seriously, that the quality of the bridge, the safety of it is definitely not just being left to chance, that people are, working on it and making sure that we have enough information on it. So I'm very comfortable with that.
Thanks, Claire. So we're working on 3.3. Do you want to keep going through that report and discuss any issues, or has anybody got any other issues from the supplementary pages, from pages 23 onwards? Gives a very, very good outline of what's taken place and when. Brian, have we any idea about the checking of the surface at this stage, or is that just ongoing until you get a...
Yes, that's ongoing. We're sort of actively working with bridge contractors to get somebody to come and make those holes in the deck.
Okay, thank you.
And that other bit of active work that Becca are doing at the moment is the loading sort of calculations to work out, are there any members of the bridge that need attention when it's all scaffolded, and what is the weight of scaffolding that we can put on the bridge, so we can give that guidance to the contractor.
Ryan, I walk across that bridge every morning, and I've noticed that you've put a counter on the bit, on the, what do you call it, the walkway, cycleway. Is that for pedestrians or cyclists or everybody going on the bridge in terms of walking, horse riding?
That's very much part of our urban mobility sort of plan and our Streets for People project, where we're working with Waikato University and a company who has got this smart technology which uses the Internet of Things. So that's very small, cheap devices, infrared, that count pedestrians and cyclists. And we can deploy those very cheaply, and they count 24 hours a day. Of course, there's no way that they don't identify who people are or anything like that. It's just a heat signature that walks by, and it's uploaded to the cloud instantly, and we can analyse that data. A big problem in the past has always been that to do counts of pedestrians and cyclists, it was very time consuming, expensive. You often had to station a person at an intersection, and you could only count, you know, in the peak hours. And so you ended up with very little data, unlike our traffic tubes where you can put down counters and leave them there for a week or 2 weeks or even permanently and get data. It was almost impossible to get that sort of data at a cheap cost until now. So we've done that on both bridges in Cambridge, so we can see how many pedestrians and cyclists are crossing the river, and in a few other spots around town and here in Tiamutu, to start to give us some good information about, well, how well are our incentives or our works to encourage walking and cycling, how are they working over time?
Pleased to hear that it's an infrared camera, because I had a good look at it about that far away, and then realised it was probably a camera, but if it's infrared, that's all right.
So definitely not, well, yes, definitely not a camera. So there's no camera to it whatsoever. It just detects heat.
It's got a little sticker that says property of Footpath District Council.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, thanks, Mike. Sorry.
I think Graham was trying to take a selfie. Hey, just with regard to the bridge conversation, you know, I think it's good that our job as politicians or councillors is to interrogate the data, interrogate the reports, and I feel really comfortable that we've done that. I also do feel comfortable with that report, and I also, you know, I feel addedly comfortable that since that LED signage has gone up to try and keep a heck of a lot more heavy vehicles that mistakenly went over that bridge, off that bridge, because there's clear warning, I think is also going to give added life to that bridge. So yeah, no, I feel very comfortable with the engineers' reports and the recommendations that have come through. That bridge is not going anywhere structurally anytime soon.
Mike? Okay, we've had a good go on that. Brian, did you want to move on 3.4, which is footpath works on both sides of the district?
Yep. So footpath works are back underway in Cambridge, William Street and King Street, and that will complete some works there which tie into the Innovating Streets or Streets for People project. There's still lots of footpath repairs, tree roots and things like that, lifting up footpaths, and we're just constantly battling away at that. In the road safety report there from our road safety coordinator, activities over the last few months, child restraints, cycle skills courses, some discussion there that it's no longer being provided by Sport Waikato, but Megan Jolly is facilitating some training at the middle school in Cambridge shortly. Obviously through November, January, we've had our drink driving campaigns underway. And of course the motorcycle training, which has proven to be very popular. A lot of motorcyclists are taking advantage of these courses to refresh their skills. And we've just recently started talking also with ACC, who is promoting some safety improvements and signage on routes that are regularly used by motorcyclists on the sort of the Sunday afternoon where they go for a ride and explore the countryside and visit cafes and things like that. So we are likely to be participating in that program with ACC. Our billboards still change from time to time. Passenger transport on the next page, 3.6. We still don't have any reporting data from the Regional Council, but it will get that in the next report as soon as it's available. Our waste minimisation activities continue there with some highlights under 4. Obviously a number of activities and things on the go. The solid waste audit, which you'll get a report on later today from Sally. The issues we're still working through, obviously, with the recycling contract and the contamination, and a lot more letters, stickers, and a few bin removals from repeat offenders where they're just basically willfully putting rubbish into the recycling bins. So I think we're up to about 15 or 20 properties that have had bins removed as a result of those audits.
Question just there?
Just briefly, yeah, thank you. Is it improving with the campaign and everything?
Not yet, no. No, it's still a substantial concern in terms of the amount of waste having to be carted to landfill as a result of that contamination. Also some concern with the company in Auckland that takes the glass, that they have reduced the level of contamination that they're prepared to accept. That's bits of household crockery and things like that. If that ends up in the glass, that it can contaminate a truckload of glass. There's plastics, and sometimes people think, well, it's where all my drinks bottles go, and so they put their cans and plastic drink bottles in there as well. So we have had to send some loads of glass straight to landfill as well because they're too contaminated.
Brian, can I just ask whether, obviously it's a big cost diverting it to landfill, and ratepayers in general are paying for that. They always will. But is it time to sheet home those costs in terms of the picking up so that they can retrieve some of that money through that rather than come out of the capital value rates that we get in the council? I mean, how are we going to sit with that during our long-term plan?
Yeah, because the recycling collection is actually a targeted rate, so the actual costs of the service go to make up that rate. And so, it did increase from the first contract rate, increased in the second year when we, worked out the costs, but it may well increase again as a result of having to deal with this contamination. We're not alone, sort of up and down the country. Many councils have exactly the same problem and are sending similar or actually even greater volumes to landfill as a result of contamination.
You, Claire?
Yeah, well, just a comment that it's really disappointing actually, and I know that Sally and the rest of your staff have actually put in a great effort to educate the public, to get the messages out of what's the right thing to put in the bins and what isn't. Now, I'm just absolutely perplexed. Why would people get that message so wrong? Yeah. And the fact that sending stuff to landfill actually just completely negates the benefits of trying to get people to recycle, because there's a lot of stuff that will go to landfill, like you said, the whole truck or something. Yeah, so I'm really hoping that staff keep on at it. Yeah, and that hopefully we can get a better response, that people can understand the importance of sorting the right stuff into the right bins.
So just 2 weeks ago, we actually held a workshop with the contractor, and we had on Zoom Christchurch's contractors who are dealing with the issue there, and to learn lessons about how they're managing it. So we are certainly pulling out all the stops to find the best ways to get it cleaned up.
Yeah, of course, Christchurch made the tragic mistake of allowing people through the COVID to put everything in one bin. But to get people out of that mode, it's a hell of a job, as you probably would have seen.
Just aside, in Hamilton, how's the food scrap collection working? Is there any data on that? Because we've talked about that before too.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have any information, but perhaps this afternoon with Sally, she may have some information.
5.4, Brian, roading and footpath service request response.
We're making continued improvement with our responses to requests and whittling down the response time period, and we can see that also in the results for December there. And at the end of the report, there is a pie graph which you might find quite interesting. It just shows the types of CRMs that we get, and you can see there a large number are illegally dumped litter. Approximately a third, and that is, I guess some of those are true fly dumping where people just drive out into the countryside and dump their rubbish, but quite a bit of it is complaints around the yellow rubbish sacks which are piled up at rural intersections for collection, which our enforcement team are dealing with that issue.
And just on that very subject, there's a media release this morning from Council saying that rubbish collection points will be removed. So those unofficial collection drop-off areas and things like that will be removed. So there's a media release just here.
Yeah, Brian, thank you so much. That's a comprehensive report. Just before I close off, I had land transport yesterday, and we finalised our 10-year plan, which will go out on Sunday the 19th, Friday the 19th of March, and it'll close February, and close on Sunday the 21st of March, and we'll be hearing submissions in April. So if we've got anything that Waipart needs, and just talking to Dawn about it, we'll need to submit for our plan. Okay, so there's a recommendation on page 21 that we'll receive the transport report from Brian. Mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Liz. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. We'll break for morning tea. Brian, thanks so much.